You are now live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
Sorry, that's quite all right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is now 6:30 p.m. and I am Chairman Matthew Rivard, and I call this meeting of the Templeton Advisory Committee to order on this, the 16th day of, I'm sorry, on this, the 30th day of September 2021. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman.
Point of Spring.
Point of information. Excuse
Point
me.
of information, Mr. Spring.
Yes. I'd like to take it up noting that this evening we have our newest addition to the Selectman's office, the intern Justice Graves, who will be taking the minutes per our suggestion to the administrator. And I hope he ends up doing that. And here's a copy for you, Justice, as to what the calling is as far as the Attorney General's division. It's pretty straightforward, and Matt does it pretty well. He puts in a lot of extra stuff, though.
I've cut it down.
Yes, you've had a hard time doing that, and you're a detail guy, and I totally understand that, because there are certain things I'm a detail guy on, and you have to be a detail, except for the meeting minutes.
All right. Welcome, Mr. Graves. And congratulations as well.
Thank you.
Okay, let me dispense with the required stuff first. The Templeton Advisory Committee business meetings are being broadcast live on TCTV Channel 8 and the TCTV YouTube channel. Any comments made to the YouTube channel chat will be considered a part of the public record and included with the meeting minutes, and a response will be made to these comments as soon as possible. The agenda and meeting materials for this business meeting were posted to www.mytowngovernment.org/01468 no later than 48 hours prior to the scheduled meeting, in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts open meeting laws. The chairperson reserves the right to add items to, remove items from, or change the order of the agenda. However, the agenda is posted in advance to give the committee and public time to review the agenda items and to ensure the meeting runs within its allotted time frame. Please note that the items on the agenda, being sequentially numbered, correspond to the items on www.mytowngovernment.org. So if you're looking for item 4A on the agenda and look in the same place, you'll see the corresponding documentation listed as agenda item 4A. So please feel free to follow along as we go. Having dispensed with that, we will begin the regular agenda with item 3A, which is public comments. Actually, before I do that real quick, just recognizing a couple of people in the room. We have Select Board member Jeffrey Bennett is in the room with us this evening, and we also have Citizen Noel Francis, who has a couple of items on the agenda this evening under new business items 6B. So let's move to item 3A, public comments. Oh, yes, we also have the town administrator here with us this evening, Mr. Lamontagne, and we've already spoken about Mr. Graves. Okay, item 3A, public comments. Is there any members of the public here that wish to make comment at this time? If there is, please come to the hot seat and be recognized by the chair.
Hot seat is not electrocuted.
Yeah. We haven't wired it. Yeah.
I'm going to light the fire a little bit later on for Mr. Lamontagne. Going once, going twice. Okay, no public comments this evening. Item 3B, approval of the meeting minutes for September 16th, 2021. I'll accept the motion to approve those minutes as presented.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion from Ms. Bartolomeo. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And I have a second from Ms. Hansa to approve the minutes of September 16th as presented. Is there any discussion?
Yes, there is.
Mr. Spring.
Yes. Just a note on a couple areas here. You've got notation about see YouTube recording for further detail. I don't think we really need to do that.
That's fine. I can believe it.
I would say just those.
The only reason I had it there is because I also noted on the select board minutes that they also referenced the YouTube video for the discussion items.
I don't think that's necessary per se.
Okay.
If somebody's looking at them, they know where meeting minutes are.
I would just leave it for now and next time, because it's not hurting anything.
No, it's not.
You don't have to delete it.
I
and do them over
I just don't want
again.
to have extra stuff on, that's all. on.
Yeah, but I mean.
If we don't have to.
We don't
So
have
let's-
to.
So let's just make that comment for Mr. Graves. He's nodding his head over there.
Yep.
Okay.
Future reference.
Okay. Anything else regarding the minutes, discussion items? Oh, thank you, Ms. Hans. I didn't see his hand up. Mr. Lamontagne, go ahead.
Just also under discussion, 7A,
7A,
1,
1.
cuts in fiscal year
Where am I here?
22.
Yeah.
This is just from.
Oh, that's that. I have 21. That should be 22.
Correct.
Thank you. I
That's all I
apologize.
have.
That's fine. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Okay, well, that corrects that. It would be.
Any further discussion? We'll make that correction on the final minutes to go out. Thank you, Mr. Lamontagne.
What about D, on the clear gulf? Is that correct?
Where am I
Adam,
here?
as far as FY23? Clear gulf?
Where are we?
Yeah, what
This would
number?
We're in FY22 right now, so the next budget is FY23.
This
So
would be
that's
Number
6.
It would be cut halfway through fiscal year 22.
22, but it would
Because the
also be,
contract goes till the end of December.
right, but it would also be applicable to FY23 as well, because it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm just.
So it'd be fully cut. in
We should just
23.
make that.
But so the way that I wrote it, it was also noted that the money spent on ClearGov could be used in other areas of the town budget,
Yep.
especially under a level funding scenario as is being presented by the town administrator for FY23, which is the next budget. So
Okay,
that is,
okay.
so I believe I did write it correctly.
Yes.
Mr. Lamontagne, are you, you're nodding. That sounds good. I
Level
did-
funding would take place in fiscal year 23.
So yes, I did write it correctly.
Here we are, we're 1 and 1.
We're all
Keep
on.
score.
I'm okay with 50%. That's sadly. Is there any other comments or discussion on the minutes from the 16th? Hearing none, I move to a roll call vote. Please indicate approval of the motion by saying yes. The disapproval by saying no, and you may abstain. Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Hansa,
Yes.
Ms. Lamontagne, I'm sorry, Ms. Bartolomeo.
I never had a French name. so-
Bleh.
fine.
Ms. Bartolomeo, yes,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 6:38 PM.
Don't want the real Miss Lamontagne. You have to be.
The real Miss Lamontagne is quite a pleasant woman. I've met her. She's very, very nice. All right, item 4A. Correspondence on September 23rd, 2021, from Kelli Pontbriand, the town accountant, the certification by the Mass Department of Revenue of the fiscal year 2022 free cash and retained earnings. I'll accept the motion to, I'll entertain a motion to accept the document as read and reviewed.
I'll make a motion
I have a,
to accept the document. Right.
I have a motion from Ms. Bartolomeo. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Hansa to accept the certification of free cash and retained earning as read as reviewed. Do I have any discussion on said motion?
Yes.
Mr. Spring,
Mr. Chairman. Can we end up putting this off till, we talk about the stabilization? Because that plays into that, or do you want to?
so we can still discuss that at the stabilization.
Okay,
This
okay,
is
okay,
literally
all right,
just
yes,
accepting the
okay.
correspondence as read and reviewed
Okay,
because it's
right.
financial. That's all it is.
I'm sorry.
Nope, you're fine. That's all
All
right.
All right.
Is there any other discussion on this motion? And then as Mr. Spring said, this will come back up when we discuss the stabilization. Mr. Lamontagne.
I'm just noticing sewer was also here for their enterprise funds. I don't see it on the, unless I'm missing. it.
Retained earnings calculations, sewer fiscal year 2022. It's
Yeah.
double-sided, Mr. Lamontagne.
I got cable, I got,
I have fiscal year,
Cable's there.
I have sewer, I have cable TV.
oh, so you have sewer on yours? Okay.
I have two on
On
those.
the backside.
Unless something didn't copy correctly on yours, I apologize if that's the
Oh,
case.
as long as you have it, okay.
But I do have it, yes, and I hope the rest of the committee members have that as well. Okay. Is there any other discussion on said motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Hansa,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 6:40 PM. Item 4B under correspondence on September 27th, 2021, from the town administrator Adam Lamontagne, an invitation to attend the North Central Health Insurance Group exploratory meeting on Monday, October 5 at 11 a.m. in the Templeton Town Hall Conference Room, and a letter to area towns and administrators. There is no action required on this other than to state that other than it has been presented for you, that it is happening, and that I just wanted to make sure that you all saw it.
Well,
If you have any, you are going to make a motion? Mr. Spring, you have a motion.
Yes, I'm going to make a motion that we gives correspondence to the select board that this would end up helping the community lower their
Well,
expenses as far as insurance.
our select board, our town's already in this.
Yes, I understand that. Our recommendation is that they can end up buying into this along with the other, with the other.
So Lamontagne?
No, Mr. Spring, I believe is articulating is by more people going into our whole purchasing agreement, whether it be the NRSD or Winchendon, we would have stronger
So what you're,
by numbers, and so encouraging folks.
you're encouraging other,
The
Yes.
exploratory meeting, because we're already in this.
And I mean,
The other
that
communities.
correspondence could go to you to pass on to the selectmen and all the rest of the individuals on here, could it not?
They're already on board with the North Central Health Insurance Purchasing Group.
But all those other ones that we had invited over, they're actually gonna,
We already have 3 communities in the agreement.
Templeton, Dunstable, and Townsend are in.
Royalston,
right, I know those towns are, but you've got some other towns that are not.
Correct. We're working on, we invited the Narragansett Regional School District, Phillipston, and Winchendon. But-
Can we put something out that we recommend that
I think they
that they
probably
join
figure
us?
that out.
for the savings for them as well as us?
Oh, so that's what you, okay.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to.
so that's what you're trying, so your recommendation, what you want to move is that you're asking there to move that the advisory chairman send a letter to, do you want me to send it to the,
I would say send it to the.
send it to the administrator and he can forward it to the,
Forward it.
okay. Send it to the, so your motion, you want it to be for the advisory committee chair to draft a letter to send to the town administrator, who will then forward it to the towns on this correspondence.
Recommending that.
Recommending that they join
because
us.
Having the savings.
Yeah, they recommend that they join us for the cost savings that it will provide to
For
the.
them
to
as
the
well as
towns.
us.
Yep. Okay,
I think that's pretty well on.
just say so moved.
So moved.
Thank you. You have a second.
Second.
And I have a second. Okay, so I have a motion from Mr. Spring, a second from Ms. Hansa, for the chairman to send a letter to the town administrator, who will then copy Superintendent Kazavat, Phillipston Board of Selectmen Chair Bernie Malawan, Winchendon Town Manager Justin Sulzbach, and Winchendon Finance Chair Tom Kane, recommending that they seriously consider joining the NCHIG, not just for the savings that will be experienced by Templeton, but for the savings that will be experienced by their towns by combining insurance. Did I get that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Is there any discussion on said motion or any further discussion? Justice, did you get all that? You'll get it off the video
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on said motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, Mr. Spring.
Yes.
Ms. Hansa.
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 6:44 PM. Is there any further discussion on the correspondence? Again, there is no action required on this other than it was presented to the committee
I'll make a motion to accept as read
and reviewed.
and reviewed.
I have a motion to accept this correspondence as read and reviewed. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. I have a motion from Mr. Spring and a second from Ms. Hansa to accept the letter from Adam Lamontagne as read and reviewed. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Hansa,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 6:44 PM. Item 5A, Advisory Committee Policy on End-of-Year Transfers. I'll accept the motion to approve the policy and form as presented and post to the town website. And don't worry, we can amend during
Yes,
this.
I understand that.
Okay, I just wanted,
That's why I'm letting people make the motion and then the second, and then I'll come back.
So I'll accept the motion to, I will accept the motion to approve the policy and form as presented and then post to the town website.
I'll second it.
I need a motion first.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Ms. Hansa. Do I have a second?
I'll second
I have a second by Ms. Bartolomeo to approve the policy and form as presented and post to the town website. I will now entertain discussion and amendments as necessary.
Yes.
Mr. Spring.
Yes, I'd like to take it into, looking at the first paragraph, but you're correct. It should be advisory.
Yep.
On that first one, I
Yep.
agree with that. I think we should continue. As far as definitions.
Yep.
I don't think that's needed because it's end of the year. And further into the thing, it actually spells that out per se.
Which one? The,
July 15th. And
well, the fiscal year definition I put in for the sole reason that a normal citizen of the town may not understand that a fiscal year isn't January 1 to December 31.
well,
It's
this
that,
wouldn't go to an ordinary citizen. It would be going to the department heads.
well, yeah, but they may also see that an ordinary citizen may be looking at our policies online and wonder what a fiscal year is. So that's the reason the definition is there. If anyone feels strongly about it, we can, like I said, we can say yes or no. I have no problem either way, but
Not worth worrying about, really.
Yeah, I'm just trying to cut down, taking it up, the spacing and stuff. Okay, I'll take my objection on that. The next one would be, under 2.
Yep.
I like the idea that you've got SMT.
STM, yeah.
STM. The latter part of that is, I believe it should be, will be justified instead of is.
Mine says will be.
The committee will be justified.
You're not looking at the document that came in the packet is the one that's got all my colorful marks and stuff on it. Yeah.
Because
I said I would do that.
I'm looking at the original besides.
Yeah. It's so. How do I want to put this? With regards to language, will be and is in this case are interchangeable. I don't care either way. Again, that was more just trying to tighten up language a little bit. You know,
My preference would be will be.
I don't care either way. Again, if if the committee doesn't care either way.
Members, if they agree with me.
I see people shaking heads. Doesn't matter either way. I can put it back to will be. I have no
Okay.
problem with that. That's an easy little change. I'll just do that. Okay, continue.
Just so you realize that a lot of this was taken from other communities
Yeah.
and vetted by them.
Mhm.
That's why I.
Understood.
Way back when.
Understood.
Number 3 is in order to approve transfer.
Number 3.
Yes, you get to approve. In order to approve. I think that maybe that should be.
Hang on. Oh, okay. I don't even have it here. It's so.
Oh, you didn't have it right. You just.
No. So the way that I did this
Yep.
is, so I have in Microsoft Word, there's a function called track changes.
Yep.
So any changes that I made are highlighted in here, and that's why you see stuff crossed out and colors and stuff like that. The fact that it's not there means it was never there.
It was on the original.
Okay, well, that's fine. It can be added back in. That's not a big deal. In order
I can
to-
show
yeah.
you that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Easy enough. That's fine.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Changing the meeting at a level instead of at the level.
Mhm.
I agree with.
Okay.
That's number 7.
Yep.
I don't think we need to take it into putting for the previous year, because the previous year would be, depending on when somebody looked at this,
Okay,
would mean that it would be the year before that we're talking about doing the transfer.
that's fine.
And I agree with the 15, cut the TH out.
That's fine.
That's good.
That's fine.
Number 8.
Yep.
Instead of Board of Selectmen, is Select Board. And that's the nomenclature that they've been using.
Okay. Board of Select Board, Select Board.
They're just changing it to Select Board.
That's easy enough. Yep.
Yep. Item 9, get rid of it. You have a number 9.
Transfer request should be submitted. Let me just make sure. Oh, okay, that's gone in here. That'll,
Oh.
once I clear the track changes, it'll go away.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's some other.
I'll make sure it'll go away.
Beyond this whole girl.
I'll make sure that it gets fixed when the track changes come
Yeah,
off.
because
That's fine.
yeah,
Yeah, I see it right here.
the next one would have to be moved up.
Yep. That'll all happen automatically when I tell the track changes. That's fine.
Item 12, which
Item 12.
would be 11, I guess.
The advisory committee may require, or is it transfer requests? Which one?
Transfer request.
Okay, so yeah, it's listed. I've got it as, yep, okay.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
think we need to put in the departments are prohibited from deficit spending under circumstances unless account is snow and ice. I think we already said it.
Everybody kind
Department
of
should
knows
not-
that.
Expend unappropriated funds anticipated approval of transfer.
It's up to you. I can delete it. That's fine.
Just to cut down on it a little bit.
That's fine.
Yep,
Bury yourself in fine print.
That's fine.
and
I gotta give you credit,
Yeah.
because I could never do that.
What's that?
Anything.
Oh, that? It's become very much habit for me
Yeah,
because
see?
in my line of work, whenever we change a document at work, we have to be able to show what we've changed so that the quality department will sign off
That's
on
the
it.
difference between you and me. You're young and I'm old.
So it's so ingrained at me at this point, it just happens automatically almost.
the transfer request must be submitted. Request using request for a transfer.
Yep.
Yes, I agree with that. That clear.
Yep.
Instead of the attached.
Yep.
That's good. The last one is request the Scribe between and it's small for the between and between accounts occurring in the last 12 months. I think that's
2 months.
Okay, it changes it from the original, but that's not a problem.
That's clarification more than
Yeah.
anything else, yeah.
Right. That's just clarification.
And then I have the revision history in there. Obviously, I said I would add that.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I'll change the revision date to today, assuming this is,
Yeah, and I see you've got the last thing, the last 2 months.
yeah, that's been out in 14, yeah. Okay,
Okay, now those are my suggestions.
anything on the form? Because
Yes.
I basically I took the old form
Yes,
and rewrote it.
I know you did.
Yeah, I kept everything that was in the old form. The only thing that I know.
Changed the old form.
The only thing that I did differently is I asked for the requests must include on the following information on separate pages.
Yeah.
Because it's just too much to put on one page. The purpose for request, the reason for request, the alternative proposal is considered, and the impact if the request is denied.
Okay, I'm gonna weigh in on this one because number one, to end up going along with the emergency reserve one, we have that, and we have those items already on here.
Mhm.
On the new one that I sent you, the only change that I was looking to think and end up having is box the approved signature loop.
Oh, that's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
That's very easy to do. That's literally just me putting a
Just like this.
border on there. That's easy enough. Yep.
Like this one here.
Yep.
And leaving the rest like the old one, except the change in the, because we have one on the website. Let me say this, there is one on the website. That this form already, it's a PDF.
Mhm.
I gave you a Word document
Mhm.
because I didn't have PDF capability.
Yep.
And according to chapter 44, section 33B, on the one that's on the website,
Mhm.
it's not there. So I made that change, and that's the only thing I made the change for that, because when you look at the purpose of the request, what we have seen in the past is there is plenty of room for them to write in there, unless they have some real long dissertation. I've seen a number of these over the 9 years that we've had, and I'm suggesting that we don't want to take it, end up having some additional paper the way you suggested that. Because that, and the form is one form. If we can put it all on one form, because this is gonna end up going to the accountant, and some of those forms and stuff, as far as documentation, gonna be lost. That's my concern. So it would keep the form, the older form, just making 2 changes to it, and it would conform to what we already have for the emergency reserve.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
No, sounds good to me.
Okay, so what I'll do then is I'm gonna put the spacing back in here.
If you want, you can end up having this as a,
I have that as a,
okay.
yeah, I have that.
Too many
And-
cooks in the kitchen.
And I didn't, I have to give you help, Mr. Chairman. Why do I want to give you help? Because you ended up going through a lot of work that they can end up redoing this document when we needed just to make a few minor changes.
Well, I also wanted to make it easier. I thought it would make it easier and clearer for people on when they were, for where they had to print and sign and date and what, and, you know, especially for the advisory committee action at the bottom, it gives us a little.
We got enough paperwork that we end up doing up front, they could cut
We
that
can
back.
have 15 years worth.
So,
Oh
But
my God.
not a problem. I will
Fill a
just-
I'm just,
dumpster.
that's a suggestion, that's, that's only my suggestion is, I'm one member here, that's it.
But that's not a problem. I can put the spacing back in there so people can write in on the form. It's not a
Okay.
problem. And
And
Yep.
your wife will be screaming at you.
yeah, she'll do that anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So do I have those as amendments? All those
Yes.
items. Okay.
Yes.
The motioner was, I believe, Ms. Hansa. Do you accept the amendments? Ms. Bartolomeo as the seconder, do you accept the amendments?
Yes.
The amendments are accepted as via acclamation,
Yes.
and Mr. Graves will get all this through the video, I'm sure, so I'm not worried about it.
Oh,
So at this time, and I have everything written down, so I'll make the changes and then I'll send it to Holly for posting on the town website
just
once
to
the
say
changes
as
are.
amended.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, we are discussing the motion as amended. Is there any further discussion on the motion to?
As amended?
Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended to approve this policy and form and post to the town website?
I only have one other comment.
Yes.
I would like to see this not only in our webpage
Yep.
or the advisory, but under the documents, forms and documents.
Yep. That's what happened with the last one.
And no, it didn't.
Oh, it didn't? I'll make sure.
No.
Okay.
I'm not only talking about the form, but I'm talking about the policies.
Yep.
We should get the emergency reserve policy on that page
Okay.
as well as this one here, because you've got those forms. That way there, they have 2 places to get the form.
No problem. We can do that as well.
Okay.
We can do that as well. I noted that over here on my minutes. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this? Hearing none. A roll call vote on the motion as amended. Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Hansa,
Yes,
Ms. Bartolomeo,
yes.
and I am a yes. The motion passes 4-0 at 6:58 PM. Item 5B, nominations for the position of advisory committee scribe. A reminder, nominations do not require a second. The nominations must be accepted by the nominee, and a vote is required to approve the nomination. Do I have any nominations at this time?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Spring?
just as a point of information, rather than call it scribe, since we have
Mhm.
an individual here, we should do the same as the select board and call that a clerk.
Okay.
The clerk's position is different than the scribe's position per se.
Fair enough.
That's just
Okay.
for further
Mhm.
reference.
In my time, it has been called scribe since I've been here, so that's fine. I have
Yes.
no problem.
Well, since we have a change,
Yes.
that's why I'm,
Since we have a change now, you're absolutely right. It would be a clerk.
yes.
Once again, any nominations?
Try. I'll do it.
Take a nomination, please.
If
Well,
she-
somebody has to nominate her.
Well, somebody's got
she
to
can
do it.
nominate.
You nominate yourself?
Somebody's got to do it.
You can step up.
Nominate Beverly.
Thank you. That's what I needed. I have a nomination of Beverly Bartolomeo for the position of clerk. Ms. Bartolomeo, do you accept that nomination?
A big pay raise, right?
Yes, yes, you can multiply 0 by 5.
Yeah, what you want to get your bit, go right to it.
You can multiply it by whatever you want. It's
No, I
gonna be the same
got
thing. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none. We go to a roll call vote. Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Hansa,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo, and I am a yes. That motion, that nomination is accepted at 6:59 PM.
Assigned a parking spot.
I don't know where he went, but I don't know where Mr. Lamontagne went, but can we get that taken care of? Okay,
Assigned a parking spot.
congratulations, Ms.
Beside the handicapped one.
Congratulations, Ms. Bartolome, and thank you for stepping up. I appreciate it. Okay.
Oh, I haven't done it, so just mention.
The biggest thing is you're gonna get the minutes from him. You're gonna have to review them and you're gonna have to submit them to the committee, which I think we can handle that, I hope. All right.
I think I'd like to have, wait on this next one for the administrator to come back.
I was just about to say that. So using my ability as the chair to change the agenda as I see fit, because the town administrator is not in the room at the time, I'm going to hold on item 6A, which is the August budget versus actual document. And actually, I'm going to take that back because the gentleman just walked back in the room.
I heard my name.
Yeah. Is that what that was? You felt your ears burning.
I would think this gentleman out of.
Do you mind, Adam, if I take Mr. Francis first? Well, and just so we can,
That's actually good, so I can print out the BBA.
okay, so yeah, you go print the BVA and I'm gonna take Mr. Francis first. So we're gonna do exactly what I just said. I'm gonna use my discretion to hold item 6A for the moment and go to item 6B under new business from Noel Francis, 2 documents requested for recommendation to the select board. Mr. Francis, would you care to come to the hot seat and speak to the committee? We'll take item number 1 first, which is a letter recommending legislation allowing the town treasurer to roll over excess property tax payments to the following quarter or fiscal year. For the public's knowledge, this, if you take a look in the meeting materials, this is item 6B1. Mr. Francis, welcome. How are you, sir?
Well,
Good. Could you please, well, actually,
You should state his name.
yeah, would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
my name is Noel Francis. I live at 14 State Road in Baldwinville.
Very good.
I've been a resident of the town of Templeton for 12, going on 13 years.
Mhm.
And my wife's a lifelong resident of Baldwinville.
Excellent. Thank you for coming before us this evening. I appreciate it. Would you like to speak to the first letter? This is the letter recommending legislation to allow the town treasurer to roll over excess property tax payments. Would you like to speak to the rationale behind this, please?
I'd like to rest on my letter. I think the letters speak for
Okay.
themselves, but I would like to add this comment. And I think my main point is this. I have paid on occasion, I've overpaid because I pay electronically my property tax bills, and I don't really follow it. I pay a set amount each month, as I'm sure many other taxpayers do.
Mm.
And unfortunately, I don't pay close enough attention, and I'm sure many other people don't, and I've run over by a few dollars. And one time when I asked the town treasurer if they could just roll it over to the next quarter or roll it over the next fiscal year, they can't do it. So then I went to the previous town administrator and I said, can you change the town bylaws and do something? And he basically told me you have to have enabling legislation to do this.
Mhm.
So that prompted me to write the letter, because if I write a letter to my elected representatives, it's different than it was years ago. Years ago, you could write a petition and they had to take it, and they would take it every year, but now the legislative sessions are 2 years running, and I just decided to go to the route of asking the Board of Selectmen to write a letter to our Representative Whips, Senator Goby and Governor Baker, and would have more weight.
Mhm.
I'm also considering, making a similar request of other cities and towns and the Mass Municipal Association. And I think hopefully it would gather some interest, and maybe the legislation would pass. I think it's very unfair to the town treasurer and the individual taxpayers that the town treasurer doesn't have the flexibility to do that, to roll the monies forward. When, if I go to my oil company and I pay a few extra dollars, or my fuel company, they just roll it.
They just roll it into the next bill.
And, I paid electronically that way. I went on a trip and I paid electronically, my cable bill and my telephone bill. I did that. There was a credit because I overpaid, and they just rolled it over.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Francis?
I don't think there's something that we'd have to talk with the selectmen about, and then we'd have to find out
Did you present this to the selectmen?
I appeared at the last meeting of the Board of Selectmen, I made a brief presentation at that time. And obviously, my initial letter was to the Board of Selectmen. They asked that I go in front of your advisory board, for your input. I would hope that you would look upon this favorably, and I would hope that the selectmen would in turn.
Well, I think we tend to do things like we did 100 years ago. And times, like you're saying, the times are changing so much that we need to change with them.
Yes.
And that's not unreasonable. Most people have a hard time paying their taxes, period. Never mind putting any money ahead. But there are times that happens. And it's more work for them to try to give you your money back.
That's understand.
To send it back.
Well, I've been paying my taxes electronically
Yeah.
for 7 or 8 years now, as I'm sure many people do, and I like it because you don't have to, put a letter in the mail. That service is kind of spotty now. So, but paying electronically is that the bills only come out quarterly, and I'm just guessing. I pay a set amount every month, and I don't pay as close attention as perhaps I should.
See how we could do that,
Yeah.
But that's a reasonable request. See, in this day and age, people don't use paper and pencil except me.
Any,
Yes,
Any
I-
other-
I could do
go
it.
ahead.
Hang on, I'd like to weigh in.
Yeah.
I looked this and I tried to end up seeing how it affects the accounting system, for the individuals that work in the committee. I mean, don't get me wrong by me asking these questions. I looked at this as a nice possibility if we could end up doing it. I see some issues in actually doing this because I don't believe the accounting system BADOC is set up to end up handling this type of account to put extra money in per se. That would be one of the first things that we need to take and end up getting some clarification from the accountant as well as the treasurer and the additional work to keep track of this. I mean, they're pretty well straight out, and I'm concerned that we're putting some additional things. If we could end up doing this easily, it would make sense. I mean, I see some. Then I started looking at it saying, okay, the gentleman is willing to do this per se. How many people are? No, I don't know. A few people that I talked to, they don't like to pay taxes, period, let alone anything extra per se. So I don't know what the scope of how many people who we would try to do this for would be on my mind as to, is this feasible from the town's point of view? It's a good idea, but is it feasible for us to do this for how many people? If you came and had done a survey of the people in the community and said, hey, listen, by the 4,000 people or plus we had in the town, I did some legwork and found out that 30 to 50% of them agree with me and they're willing to put extra money in. Then I say, well, we got some interest in this. That's number one. Number two is, like I said, can we handle that within the thing?
Right.
So my only suggestion here would be to table the discussion on this until we can, the gentleman can find out maybe some information from the accountant, as well as the amount of work from the treasurer, that they can end up coming back and giving us an update on this and how many people you have. I mean, I like what I saw, but I see some issues.
So, yes, Mr. Lamontagne.
So if I can, the treasurer collector stopped by my office today.
Speak up.
Treasurer collector stopped
There
by
you
my office today and she had some concerns because legally she can only get the taxes for what goes out for commitment. And she has some concerns. So to Will's point, to table it and to have the treasurer collector probably come to the next meeting to have that discussion further, I think would be, because I don't like Will, I think I already brought it up. I'm not sure how many people this would actually benefit. I mean, right now, we're just trying to get the commitment, people come in to pay the taxes that they owe now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many are really gonna go above and beyond and pay over their commitment. So I think continuing this discussion, I appreciate Noel's work on this,
Mhm.
but I think to at least have the expert come in that has to do all the collecting would be the proper way to move
Yes,
forward.
and
with
also
this.
the accountant, because I'm not sure if Gatsby, and I'm not sure if it's 45, 6, that this complies with that and within VADAR. VADAR is our accounting system, just to, as the gentleman knows. I mean, we have a certain accounting system that we have to follow. And I don't know how it would work within VADAR, if it's even possible, because you're talking about, I think you're also talking about not only the extra payment of taxes, but actually people putting in. I see that you talked about putting X amount of money in, 50 or whatever dollars per some schedule that they can build up some money as far as that. I like the idea because if we could end up doing that, like you said, Gardner ended up paying cash for a building. I don't believe we did that for this building, but I can't swear to that per se. Because you brought that up. I just have some questions on this. I like the idea if there's a possibility to do it, but there's some questions before I could end up saying, I have to make that recommendation or a motion to recommend that to
I
the
think
selectmen.
we can look at it and we can ask and we can find out, because the way he's doing business is gonna be the way everyone does business.
Yep.
The younger people do it all the time.
Yep.
I still write a check.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
it is what it is,
And my comment,
you know.
and my comment goes back to how much this would be used as well, because I know a lot of people are on mortgages that have escrow accounts that automatically send the exact amount of taxes right to the town
Yep.
on a quarterly basis, so there would be no
Sure.
usage for that. And so my question would be, if 85% of the people in town have that situation, how much usage is this really going to get? So I think there are two motions here. The first one is, and I'm going to make it, is to table item 6B until such time that the treasurer and the town accountant can comment on questions by the advisory committee.
Yep.
And so I make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Rivard and a second by Ms. Bartolomeo to table item 6B until such time that the treasurer and town accountant can comment on these documents and their feasibility. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Spring,
Yes.
Ms. Hansa,
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That motion passes at 7:12 PM. I make a second motion to forward these documents to the town accountant and to the town treasurer via the town administrator for comment at the next regularly scheduled advisory committee meeting. I make that motion,
Second.
and I have a second by Mr. Spring. Is there any discussion on that motion? On the motion to forward these documents to, through the town administrator to the town accountant and to the town treasurer for comment at the next advisory committee regular business meeting. How do you vote, Mr. Spring?
Yes.
Ms. Hansa?
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo? And I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 7:13 PM. Mr. Francis, thank you for your time. We will get comment from the appropriate town departments on this, and we
You see
will.
where some of the problems that I brought up, it just, if those were cleared up, that's when we can make a recommendation.
Yep.
I understand perfectly.
Every journey starts with a step, so.
And it's,
I understand it's a process. and,
Yes. The VADAR allows them to do what's regulated kind of a.
Yeah, because I
You
don't know if
you
they
don't
can
know.
even do
Right.
that within that.
You could pay your whole tax bill at once and they could take out.
Let me just give one more item to the gentleman. Do you know of any other communities that's doing this already?
Or not.
That would be helpful also.
That's doing,
rolling over.
it can't, because it has to be done, the
Okay.
legislature has to authorize. it.
Okay.
We have
So the
to-
legislature would have to authorize it. That would open it up to the entire 351 cities and towns.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Correct.
All right, so that answers that question.
Yeah, it does.
It cannot be changed by a vote of the board of selectmen.
Yeah,
Cannot be
it's gotta
changed
be
by a
It
vote.
has to be
It
by
has to be
the,
by
it has to be the
legislature.
state legislature that does it and has to be signed by the governor.
The
Okay,
reason why I'm here is, as I said, a letter from the board of
Start,
selectmen.
yeah.
so So what we'll do is we'll take the action to at least get some information from the treasurer and the accountant to see if it's even feasible.
Yeah.
Because if it's not feasible, then obviously it puts the whole thing to bed, unfortunately. But if there's feasibility,
We'll have to make that
Yeah.
recommendation to the selectmen.
But even if it's not feasible now, if the legislature worked on it, it would be feasible in the future.
it potentially could be feasible in the
So
future,
that's
that's right.
we're not shutting the door on the whole thing because it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does make perfect sense.
What I would hope is that the legislature would act on this and give cities and towns a period of 2 to 5 years.
Yeah. Flexibility,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
Mr. I have one other thing. I'll just tell a little story.
Please do.
My last place that we owned, we had a little tiny, teeny weeny little corner of property that for legal reasons came from another.
Yeah.
Originally, had like a telephone pole on it. That's all it did on that thing. The tax on it was, I think, something in the order of 23 cents a quarter. I couldn't prepay. You know, I had to put more stamps on the outside of that thing. to
Then you
send
had
it
money
to
in the
them.
envelope to send it in, yeah,
Right?
it does, yeah.
And they would not let me prepay.
Yeah.
Government
I would
doesn't
like to
always like to
prepay this
work
for a couple
the way we
years,
would like to
you know?
work.
Yeah,
I would have let them take the taxes. I would have
I-
asked them more to
Would've-
do that.
would have taken a while.
It was an angering situation.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So Francis, I'd like to thank you for coming up with this. It at least gives some insight to taking it up the possibilities of
I do have your book. I got it from Ashley.
Oh, which one? I have 3.
That's the last one, the one she worked on the cover.
She's worked on all 3 of my covers.
I can't remember the name. That's a while.
Is there the one about apportionment?
Famous.
Oh, yeah. I write books nobody reads.
Oh, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Not true.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Francis.
Did
We
you
will-
have any consideration on the second item?
They're being sent in conjunction.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
because the letter to the select board and then the legislature recommendation, I'm sending it in conjunction, being sent together to the treasurer and the accountant for their review and
It's gonna be a
comment.
historic moment.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. We appreciate your time this evening.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a empty seat on the advisory board.
Right.
We don't have someone with knowledge.
Absolutely.
Don't
Steal-
laugh.
You're stealing my public service announcement from later. Using the discretion of the chair to change the agenda, we now go back to item 6A under new business, which is the August 2021 budget versus actual document. I would accept the motion to, I would entertain a motion to accept the August BVA into the record as read and reviewed.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? It is moved by Ms. Bartolomeo and seconded by Ms. Hanza to accept the August 2021 budget versus actual document into the record as read and reviewed. Who has discussion items on this?
absolutely.
I knew you were gonna pipe up. Mr. Spring, the floor is yours. Mr. Lamontagne, we've lit the fire underneath that chair. Please don't yell too much.
You have enough ink in that pen.
There's nobody.
I've been using it all day.
Fire department's
Find
not-
out.
All those employee change forms.
I mean, we don't have the ability to ask some of these questions as to why particular items are way above what we expected at this time of the year. So that's part of what I'm looking at. Let me just point out one for the treasurer collector. Maybe it's, did she go to class or something during the last couple of months? Because the employee support is up higher than I would have anticipated. It's over 30%.
I know she was taking a class today. I will have to double check.
Okay, are you looking at that, may I ask? Yeah, on the treasurer floor.
Oh, okay, I wasn't looking down far enough.
I
Sorry,
have to
that's
see
my
if
fault.
I
Okay,
have to see
yep.
if that class was, it was a municipal law course.
Oh, I
So
figured
I'm
that-
not sure if it came out of her budget or not, but I'll
You
double
could
check.
end up answering some of the questions that
Yeah,
I have.
I was just orienting myself, sorry.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Yeah, the next one would be on page 2. This would be development services, employee support is 74%.
I will get back to you on that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah, they
That
almost
one-
burned up
that
their
one
entire
really-
What did
I
you-
figured
didn't
the
you
other
say?
30%, maybe
Page
she
2,
did a class. that
development
she would take
services.
Later on, but
employee
using
support.
almost 3/4 of it already into this part of the year, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, that's burning up almost your entire account by end of August. They're not gonna have anything left for the remainder of the year at that
Yeah.
rate.
I don't want another end of year letter like I sent out.
Let me go.
Well, yeah, but you don't have to go nuts in the first 2 months in order to,
I'll double
avoid
check
that.
up.
Because now what'll end up happening is something important will come up in April or May and we don't have any money for it. Where are we gonna go?
A lot of
Just
the
saying it.
A lot of the questions I have, I think that the administrator has some input to it.
Mhm.
On page 5, the DPW transmission lecture, we've allocated, we haven't purchased that, or what's the?
I was
mean-
thinking about that too. I hated the idea of that.
That was for 22 budget. I mean,
Just starting 22 budget.
yeah, we're already gone through 1/4. Is there a problem on purchasing it, or?
As of late, the DPW director we just finished up the MS4. Federal, submitted it to the federal EPA
so
and then the Mass
basically,
DEP, so.
He hasn't
it could be on-
he hasn't got around to this. That's what I'm looking.
That's how I would interpret that.
Okay. The fire station, the ISA cable, is that something that we're gonna end up getting before winter time?
I will have to check with DPW director on
Okay.
that.
And this one goes back to 2019, is the fire training room AC, the 44,400.
I will check with the DPW director on both of those.
Okay. I mean, it's been on the books for quite a while. And I see we've got monies for Gilman Wake for 19. I'm not gonna ask you to make any comments there. The senior center, there's $20,000, over $20,000 there.
That one I could speak to,
Okay.
this was a article for the improvements to the senior center. As you both know, we have some issues with the roof there and the kitchen is not complete. So I had the architect go down there. We finished up the plans with Scout Hall in the River's Edge. And now I have him working on those, and that 20,000, roughly 21,000
Yeah.
will be used for the architect to drop the plant
Okay,
specifications.
Thank you. I mean, that's really what I'm looking for, is to take it into, we're actually presently working.
We were just actually at the senior center today with Jackie Prime, and our community service director and our DPW director.
I mean, if I've got these questions, I'm sure that other members look at this and say, how come that's not being spent? Now, the other one is 2020 DPW MS4.
That one you'll see expended.
Okay, it hasn't been.
That was
processed.
for some training, the IDDE training that got pushed off.
Yeah.
Because of the COVID.
Yeah.
And that was one of the requirements we had to do within our annual report. But it got pushed off because of the COVID, and you'll see that expended.
Yeah, the next one is the vehicle major repairs. Nothing's been expended. We asked for it in 20, and here we are in 21. And we didn't fix that vehicle?
The 88968.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one.
There was that was a higher allocation. A significant amount of that was expended. I will check on what the DPW director is going to do with the 88968.
Oh, okay. That gives us the impression that we asked for that amount and it wasn't expended. So if it was one of the things, let me just feedback so that everybody knows what they've done on the Vadar here is we've allocated, they might have been, what, 15, probably a couple $1,000
In vehicle major repairs.
Yeah.
Remember the vehicle repair appropriation amount? Was it like 10,000 or 12,500? Top of your
First
head?
one, I think, was like 12.5.
That's what I'm
But in
thinking.
a way, you have to kind of look at that as the assessor's reval money that they ask for each year, because to me, that is set aside for something that comes up unexpected, so you don't have to go through a reserve fund transfer request
Was that, yeah, but was that
Because
a
like
separate,
transmission
was that a
is
separate
broken truck,
article?
It's unforeseen.
Was that a separate
believe it
article?
was a special-
I didn't get a
was a
chance to look.
special
at it.
article.
There was several separate articles.
Oh,
for
okay.
The vehicle.
Yeah, if it's a separate article, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that. I didn't know if it was a separate article. I see that we're still talking about the town hall cameras.
We're trying to develop a plan on where to put that, now with these, bins out here,
Ah.
that could be an issue, we could set them up out here. So far, we haven't had any issues. But if we do identify one, we'll be able to understand where to place these cameras.
Yeah. Okay. I don't like to see us put something on and then not use it if we're not going to use it. Next one would be the Main Street Bridge. I understand that. We haven't expended something that we talked about that, and that's pretty good. The police four-wheel drive is they wanted 25,000. Was there a holdup that they have to wait for that, or?
There was, what happened is we received the quotes, and that's why we have the additional appropriation, but all these vehicles are on the ordering so backed up, the police chief has put it in, but it's just a matter of.
I was just gonna
when
say
it
that,
gets
I
comes
was just
in.
gonna say, this goes back to the backlog of supply chain right
Yeah,
now. The
yeah.
vehicles are all just backlogged at the
I
ports. and
figured
everything
as
else.
much, but I wanted to end up getting some clarification.
So yeah, if you go to page 4, you see ACO truck edition, the 7,500. And then these, you have here for the 25,000.
So 32.5 really.
Well, once we get that, a lot of these are backed up.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, that makes sense.
I see that the Royalston Road title work, we haven't begun that because I know that, what year? So everybody, I mean, so we got new members. What year is that supposed to be?
It is on the transportation improvement plan for, I believe, 25.
26.
But it is on there. But
Yeah, it's there, but there's always the possibility that some project could get.
Good
bumped.
moved up or
And
down?
This would get moved up. It
Mhm.
shouldn't go out farther, but there's a slim chance that it can be moved up by another project getting canceled, or somebody does something less than smart with a project, and that happened in Ashburn.
Yeah.
And it's little things like, you want to do something and add it to it, you don't have a plan, DOT will boot you,
Yeah,
and it could get moved up, but it's 25, 50, 26, just. But it's.
Is that
I mean, it's
another-
talked
how
about.
many,
it, then
how
we
many,
go-
how many sedan transmissions are gonna get taken out as a result of that? Is my next
Is that
question.
another article that was as an article that we're gonna keep on until we do the title
Yeah.
work? Okay,
Makes sense.
okay. Tax title work, 17,500. Now, I'm gonna ask about this one because we have on, the fall town meeting is there, and we're asking for another 17,500.
And we haven't
And we-
expended the first
and we haven't
17.5.
And that was back in
21. last year.
21.
you will see, the treasure collector just spoke with me, and she's working with the attorney. There's gonna be quite a bit of letters going out for a lot of these properties that have been delinquent. We're also looking at a plan, because as you know, when they're late paying their taxes, that first list goes out. But after that first list, it doesn't go into the paper. We're also working on a plan on how we're gonna approach those delinquent properties going back to have delinquent taxes that haven't been paid 5 years ago, if you will.
Yep.
So you're gonna see this money get spent quite a bit
Okay.
Okay.
coming up soon, because now with this whole, with the town taking action, that money will go fast with the attorney.
This is not recent non-payments. This is going further back or what?
This is recent, and we have to go further back on some of these other ones.
We still have some further back there. We should have gone after those folks.
The treasure collectors actively.
I know that, but I'm saying, I'm surprised we have some that go back more than a couple of years. I mean, that the town, you have a, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Bennett?
Just regarding this, and to me, this is good money to have sitting there for the collector to use,
Mhm.
because in past years, there wasn't money put
Exactly.
aside. And I don't know, I think it was 12, somewhere 13, maybe 14. There was like 800,000 in outstanding taxes owed to the town. Well,
Higher.
that
Yeah.
went out to a private firm and they
Yeah.
they bought about half of that.
Mhm.
So we've kind of gone from a way bad situation to the situation now, because we didn't used to have money to fund for the collector to go to land court. It's not really cheap. So now we're putting more money aside to do that work. So when the stuff comes up,
Yeah.
these stay
There you go.
current, we'll go after recent stuff. And there's still some older stuff, but you can't pursue the taxes unless you have the funds for, lawyer and
Exactly
land
right.
court
And we
fees.
didn't have those ones.
Those fees for land court and deeds and stuff have been increased to fund CPC money.
Yeah.
For the reimbursement, so it's like a double-edged sword, so you need more money to process that because the fees have gotten higher.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just let me expound on one thing that Mr. Bennett said, just for the newer members. It was in 2016 that we had over 800,000 of back taxes. They went to that company, but we ended up selling off those for between 400,000 and 500,000 that we got. And what they did is they foreclosed on those folks. And they turned around and sold those, and they got back onto the tax roll, which is a plus for the community, because you can't end up operating a community if you don't. do
Right.
that going. So I just want to make sure that you understood that when he brought it up.
So
I
we're
mean,
developing,
I think that's a positive. So
so we're developing a game plan to publicize those potentially onto the webpage, and then the treasurer collector will follow up with the attorney, get those letters out.
So we have, my concern is if we have a lot of them that are non-payment in this last year or so because of COVID, I'm concerned about our citizens, because that's not good for the community as well as for those folks. I hate that they can end up seeing us go after those folks if they haven't got the means that they could end up doing that because they've lost employment or whatever.
It's a delicate
That's a
balance.
hard situation to be in. Yeah.
Anything else, sir?
Yes, just looking at a number of things on the CPC that have been hanging on for forever. Scout Hall in 16, we had over $6,000 still on the books. Scout Hall for 50. Maybe Adam, that just ring your bell, is that between those two, because I know you've gone out for, and you're gonna have to go out for bids. So if the 50 doesn't do, you get another 6,000. I just want to take and let you know that on the CPC funds. And then, of course, we got River's Edge, so everybody's aware about. They asked for 35, a little over 35,000. They're going to have to go out again. They went out for bid, and the bids came out. Nobody was aware of that. And Adam is putting that on the
It's on the warrant,
So
yeah.
you'll see some additional monies that we're going to have to take a look at on the warrant November 3rd. And I'm surprised, like, the Dwelly Farm is still got that amount of money. I just, what's that 2020 affordable housing? Do you remember what that was?
That was for the affordable housing, work with development services to do that whole system of the lottery system, if you will. If I can remember correctly.
It's to set up that trust, and that's money to.
It was like a lottery system, right?
Yeah, to go in there, so that's gonna be a long.
Long process. Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure that my fellows members here understood what some of these are. And then I want to go to the page 7 to take a note that we've got over $13,000 for under recreation. That's not expended.
It's early yet. Recreation's starting to get things going, I think, aren't they?
They're moving.
Yeah.
I'll be
That's
at their next
donations, but-
meeting, so.
They have a budget, and this is just a,
And to Mr. Spring's point, they also have the community services revolving account in addition to their budget in this donation expense account.
Yeah, they have, I'm talking about donations because we have a number of donations. I'd like to see the one on Hubbard, on page 8, the hospital cottage donations.
That's gonna get zeroed out at some point, isn't it?
No,
Or
Well,
there's no hospital cottages anymore.
we
the only,
discussed this sometime back. I
yeah,
remember.
the only thing I can think of, I haven't talked to Alan. The only thing I could possibly think of would be there are graves at the cemetery in Baldwinville, across from the light company
Hmm.
of the children from the hospital cottages. Maybe we could put a central headstone for them.
And I thought that was
It's
for
not
the
a lot of
development
money.
center, yeah. Those grave sites.
That was for hospital cottages.
Also,
Hospital cottages, the kids used to go up there years ago.
yeah, I know.
And they died and no one claimed their bodies. So Alan unearthed these. They were all, the area was all overgrown. Him and Steffi would go up and they went up and cleaned that whole area out. And
I know he did quite a bit of work,
they-
but I thought that was just for the development center,
no, this is way before that.
way
That's-
before that.
This is when early hospital cottages, the kids came from the city and they all were ill and some of them died and they have little headstones. Maybe we could do something there because there's no sense. I know Bob Tobzik said something about putting up a marker and where that used to be, it doesn't make any sense. But that's not a whole lot of money either. I don't know how you can, I mean, what can you do for $3? Buy some
We've got a
flowers.
couple of grants here that I like, the vest and the fire department grants. Those,
This is
those-
page
page 9.
9. Thank you.
I thought there was more money in the hospital cottages than Adam. No?
There
No,
was originally, when we first talked about it, when I
And
first
talked to
came
Mr.
on.
Sozik and he had a plan and he was gonna put up
No,
that bush.
yeah, he couldn't put the bushes up because that's not our land. That's not hospital cottage land.
I'll follow up with him because he must have expended something out of here, because when I talked with him, I told him, we need to close this account and
Yeah,
do
but
something
you
nice.
would have thought that he would come back, because I don't know what.
Well, sometimes Bob, once he gets his mind,
Well, guess
Yeah.
what? It just doesn't make
I'll check, I'll
sense.
follow up, but let me circle this one.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because I mean, there was a little bit of money, we could have done something. I don't know how you close it out because
It's 1298,
98.
maybe some cleaner.
Let me go on to page 11. We're into the wage classification. We're gonna expend some more monies on that one, under 20,000, right?
I got some bills that will be coming.
Okay.
Yeah, that's to finish up that, the state grant we received.
And
And the green communities, there'll be, we have the select board approved a change order to install some of this insulation, if you will, at the highway garage.
yeah.
That was found, so we're just waiting to get the approval from the state to get that change order, and then we get to the next disbursement of
I
green
was
communities money.
astonished that thing wasn't insulated all these years.
Yeah, on the green community
God,
thing.
please.
Yeah, so what we'll do is by putting that all up, we'll extend the roof life at the highway garage.
And a barn that had insulation
Now,
now.
here's one I'm having a problem with. We have on the upcoming warrant, being asked to take and end up putting like 24,000, and I see that FEMA COVID personnel is 13,700 here, or almost 13,800, that we received from FEMA, and they tied that.
Page 11, bottom.
From what I recall from the selectmen's office, or the selectmen's meeting, they said something about that, this was in line with FEMA, that they were asking for the money. Is this I don't understand that.
From what I can recall with the FEMA, the only thing that they would put reimbursement in for was first responders, so police and fire strictly. And then, so when we were going through the CARES and the FEMA, everything got really narrowed down. So the rest that we couldn't, because we had to submit to FEMA first.
Yep.
So anything with police and fire got sent to FEMA, and then the rest will be submitting to CARES of the eligible expenses. So right now we have to do our CARES, what's that? When you going towards the end of the the year, if you will, for the reimburse, put in the CARES expenses. At the top of my head, I'm losing track. But it needs, everything needs to be submitted to the CARES at this point. Right after that, you see the ARPA expenses too. We have to also keep track of all those reporting requirements.
Yeah, there's some more money for senior center, which we, probably for the roof and stuff. I just want to point out for all the members, because we're going to talk about this stabilization and part of the financial management plan. If you look on page 13, OPEB. Yep. $242,464 in OPEB.
Yep.
That wasn't too many years ago. We had nothing.
That's right.
When that first account, that account was established, or at least voted on to establish that fund, when Jeff Ritter was on it. I think it was in.
No, way before that. I remember being at town meeting when they established it.
Yeah, this was
No, before that, like way back.
They
in the-
didn't do it though.
No, because there was no money.
Well, the one thing that you, and I talked about with Jeff, is you have to establish the fund, whether you had the money or not, because the discussion is to get a better bond rating, is at least you had the fund, whether you had the funds to put in it at that time or not.
Way, it was years ago that they established it, they talked about it, and then there was like, nobody put any money into it. But we were supposed, there was a time frame where they said that we needed to have a lot more money in it because everybody was gonna be retiring.
Yeah,
So I don't know how far off that base we are.
It was the
Target.
OPEB liability.
2035.
And well, the plan is to really focus on a retirement unfunded liability right now, which is going to go till 2036, where it's going to drop off, and then we're going to go after the OPEB front. But in the meantime, as long as we keep contributing to the OPEB,
Yeah.
like we will continue to do at the fall town meeting, we can keep that liability down as much as we can, and really still keep making progress on that front, and really addressing once the retirement liability
Because
drops off.
that's a,
I know Select Board Member Bennett and I talked about that.
yeah, that's a bad thing to have pending us, because it's a liability we can't necessarily meet in today's. But the last one I have is on page 14. Now, the library has a bunch of gifts, etc., but I didn't understand this one. Here, maybe you can explain to us. Is the Eden Library Perpetual Care Expenditure Trust expense?
I will have to follow up with you on that.
I don't, I didn't know we had another one like that. That was just my question.
Let me do some research.
I
on
think that goes
Yeah, because
way back,
we have-
way back.
Just so the other members, we had a lot more trust funds in the past, and there was some consolidation, because some of them in today's world didn't make sense. They were for the poor or whatever, and they just didn't make sense in today's thing. I mean, I know that the town went through those a number of years ago. That was my only question. Thank you.
Like the Pine Grove Trust is for Pine Grove Cemetery alone. If you buy something with that trust money, you can't use it in another cemetery.
Right.
The same thing goes for Green Lawn, Lee, Hadley, and there are two Hadleys in Hamilton. The Hadley and the Green Lawn, those go way back, way back for years. And they use them on occasion.
Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Lamontagne?
But that trust is under our library fund, so I will just
Yeah.
talk with our director over there.
Thank you, Adam, for at least getting clarification. I just, some of those struck me as, I didn't recall, and I, some of those were, like you said, some of those were
The
individual.
library
items
trust,
that-
they don't spend their money too freely.
Well, it's our job is to take and watch the money, and I want to
No,
watch
no,
the
but I
money.
mean, the building was falling apart. They finally started fixing it, which was a smart thing to do.
Anybody else have any questions regarding the budget versus actual? Good. Just Bartolomeo,
Yes,
any questions? Are you good?
I'm good.
You're done?
Yeah, I'm done.
There you go.
In that case, Mr. Lamontagne, you have some items that you're going to follow up on, and you can copy the advisory committee on those items when you have them.
I will follow up on those.
Thank you. Outside of that, the motion is to accept the August 2021 BVA as read and reviewed. On the motion, how do you vote, Mr. Spring?
Yes.
Ms. Hanza?
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo?
Yep.
And I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 7:45 PM. We now move to discussion items. Item 7A. Mr. Spring presents a review of the advisory committee document, elements of a complete review for town meeting in advance of our pre-town meeting scheduled for October 21st, 2021. I would remind the committee, there's no motions on discussion. This is literally just, we're bringing these up so that you guys have a better understanding of what we are doing and what is coming forward. Mr. Spring, I think the document is, first of all, before you kill me, I cleaned the document up just so it was a little bit easier to read. I didn't change any of the text at all.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I just want to let you know that so that I don't want to be,
You're doing extra work. That's all I'm talking about.
well, no, this is extra work, so it's easier for everyone to read it. It is. So otherwise, I would let you, I would say that if you have anything you want to bring up on this, you please.
You did it differently than I.
If you want to, if there's anything you want to bring up on this, bring it up, please.
No,
But otherwise, I would ask the committee to please give this a good read through prior to the pre-town meeting on October 21.
Well,
and,
my big question was, I did it as guidelines, and I looked at another community, and also went and got some information to put on here to help us when we have to go through the warrant. I know we have new members, that's always an issue as to what our responsibility is. And you need at least a little understanding, or at least pointing in the right direction as to what we need to, the question that we need to ask. Now, I don't know if you want to end up having this as a policy or guidelines, or put it on our webpage.
we very well could. That would require a motion to make this a guideline document and post to the town website under the advisory committee. That would be, you could make that motion.
Oh, okay, I'll make that as a motion to do that.
I have a motion to make the document Templeton Advisory Committee Guidelines, elements of a complete review and preparation for town meeting, an official guideline document, and have it posted to the town or to the town website under advisory committee. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Bartolomeo. Is there any discussion on said motion?
Sounds good to me.
The only thing I will do, Mr. Spring, is I will add a revision history to it, just like I've added everything else.
No problem.
Okay. This way we're solid on that, and we can come back to it in 3 years, just like we've done everything else.
Hey, this would be 3 and 0.
Yes, this would be version 0, first issue. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none on the motion, how do you vote, Mr. Spring?
Yes.
Ms. Hanza?
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo? And I am a yes. That motion passes
I'd like
4-0
to
at 7:48 PM.
I'd like to take and thank my fellow committee members for allowing me to take and present that, and actually
Okay.
put that in motion.
Just make a note on here, add revision. Okay. Item 7B, also submitted by Mr. Spring, as a review of the stabilization fund history in advance of our pre-town meeting on October 22nd, 2021, as there is an article on the warrant transferring money to the stabilization fund. This is 3 documents. The first is the select board's policy on reserve funds and fund balances. The second is a history of the stabilization fund, which most people will see this because I did clean it up. I cleaned it up so that it was a little bit easier to read.
You did extra work because
Yeah.
I've updated it again. I'd like to take and pass these
Oh,
down.
sure, yeah.
To everybody.
Cassandra,
If you want,
updated document.
You can clean these up after.
Updated document. I'll take one. There you go.
Okay.
And the third document is the already reviewed certification of free cash, et cetera, that we talked about from the town accountant earlier in the evening.
Does the administrator and anybody in the audience who would like a copy of the updated one?
It's an updated version of the, yeah.
Yeah. Jeff, you want
Justice will give you one of
Okay.
these. Yeah.
There's three. Anybody else? I made extra copies. Okay,
All right, Mr. Spring.
yes, let me say this. In looking over the financial policy after the free cash came up,
Mhm.
I ended up looking at the financial management plan. And I started questioning some stuff. Let me start off by saying, under free cash, on page 7 of the actual document for the of the financial management plan that I made. It'll be page 7.
I think it's actually the first page of the thing that he gave you. He has listed as page 7. I think his copy is original. It's the first page. He's looking under B1 free cash.
Yeah.
And you're gonna speak at the point where it says
Yes.
Division of Local Services, I
Yes,
assume?
the Division of Local Services recommend that municipality strive to generate free cash in the amount of 3 to 5% of the annual budget.
Yep.
And then, under the policy, the town will endeavor to annually generate free cash of 5% of the prior year omnibus budget,
Less school.
less school debt.
Okay.
Now, let me just say this. And looking at that, I went, and the first time I looked at this, and I actually made a mistake of not doing it correctly. If I go by the policy, I take the general fund budgets for the last 3 years and the free cash for the last 3 years. And this is the percentage of free cash generated. 12.5%, 15.1, and 14.7 of the budget. Now, I didn't take out of the omnibus budget. I did not take out for the school on any of those. If I
That's a
did,
gross amount, basically.
if I did, it would have meant that the percentage would be higher of free cash generated. Okay. Okay. I see my accountant down there. She's following this.
I'm sitting there saying.
She's
no,
got these
but-
numbers booked.
She's on it already.
Okay, she's there.
My first thing is, why are we generating more than what we're supposed to? That's not good. If we can't follow the policy, why have it?
I would also speak to the fact that if we're generating 15-ish% of free cash on a year-over-year basis, give or take, then I would also argue that when we're talking about level funding of the budget in FY 2023, there should not be much of an issue to level fund the budget in FY 2023 if we're generating that much free cash.
And what I want to point out is that the
Everybody else-
DLS says of the annual budget. It doesn't say of the omnibus budget. Because if you look at the actual budget, and I'll go back to what we just ended up doing. The 21 budget was not the 9,633,000. It was actually 17,637,000. 17 million.
Thank you.
637, 330. Thank you for looking at my sheet.
Well, I didn't want everyone to think the town had a budget of $17,000.
We'd like to think and believe we can do it for that.
Yeah, right.
That's why it's a-
So
How many people work for free here? Yeah.
So, I mean, that section of the, as far as the policy, needs to reflect more in line with what the DLS has done. So that we're actually looking at the correct amount. And I did some scribing on that, and said, okay, if it was against, the free cash was against the 17 million number, it'd be a little bit over about 7.5%. I can't get excited about that as much. But if the policy says something, we should, and we're doing that, and we're generating that much, there's a problem.
And so if I can.
Please do.
I think what you'll see come fiscal year 2023, once we level fund, you'll see that being more in line with our policy.
I would expect. Because I think, because Mr. Spring makes a very good point here, is that 15% is, I'm not gonna say it's out of line. I mean, it's always good for the town to have extra money in its coffers, don't get me wrong. But
But in
We
addition, we're also closing a lot of these special articles
Mhm.
too.
I know, and that
That
also
could-
added to it. Yep. That
So
also
Yeah, I
added
mean,
to
there's
it.
other variables.
Here's my thoughts, and I'm gonna present this, is the policy needs to be changed. Instead of calling the omnibus operating budget, is that they can end up doing what, like the DLS suggested, to do it as the annual budget. That way there, the percentage isn't way out of whack. And that's our budget, but if it really means the omnibus budget, free cash, because that's really where it's generated, then we're really out of the ballpark here. I mean, I looked at that and said, yes, omnibus budget makes sense, because that's where the free cash comes from. It doesn't come from the school budget, that's everything else that we lump up. And I went, okay. Less school debt, why? That's a question that's haunted me. I was gonna ask one of our members, who was a selectman at that time, what the thinking was. Why? Because I looked at other communities and they never say less school debt. It's always against a number and not less school debt. Less school debt in some of the earlier years, like 19 and 20, wouldn't have made a big difference as far as the percentage. They would still been pretty high. In 21, if we had, it would have gone up probably anywhere from 1 to 3% higher if we had taken the school debt out. And I figured it against the actual omnibus budget and not less the school debt.
Well, because the school debt is part of our budget.
And that's my thinking. So can I make a recommendation at this particular point that we end up setting a recommendation to the selectmen that you can change that and change that particular portion and get rid of less than under the policy on page 7, is to get rid of the wording less than school debt?
You can make that motion, so it will be a motion to recommend to the Board of Select, the Select Board, that they amend their financial policy under reserve fund balance, reserve funds and fund balance policies, under the policy where it states the town will
Under free
endeavor.
cash, free
Yep.
cash.
Under free cash, under B1 free cash, where it states the town will endeavor to annually generate free cash of 5% of the prior year's omnibus operating budget less school debt. You want them to strike less school debt,
Yes.
and did you want them to change omnibus to,
No,
or you want to leave that alone?
No,
Okay,
because it should be, this particular one should be against omnibus, because that's really where you create the free cash.
I just wanted to clarify that because I heard, okay, so the motion is, and you're gonna, and when I'm done reading, and when I'm done saying this, you're gonna say so moved.
Yes, okay.
Is for the select board to amend their financial policies under B reserve funds, fund balance policies, B1 free cash. Policy, second paragraph. The town will endeavor to annually generate free cash of 5% of the prior year's omnibus operating budget less school debt. Strike the words less school debt.
Yes. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Spring and a second by Ms. Bartolomeo. Is there any discussion? Hearing none on the motion, how do you vote, Mr. Spring?
Yes.
Ms. Hansa?
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 7:58 PM.
Is that,
I will draft that. Do you want me to draft that as a recommendation from the advisory committee?
yes.
Yes, I'll
Email it,
draft
I can
it.
just email it out.
I'll, that's fine. Yeah, I'll write the email and I'll send it to you.
The administrator is also copied.
But he will be. I send everything to the administrator and he forwards to the select board in that case. It all goes through him.
I know one of the people here is come as a citizen, but I know he's also on the select board. So he's at least aware of what we are recommending.
I'm sure that's why he's here. He doesn't hate us yet. Mr. Bennett, are you gonna refute the "you don't hate us yet" comment?
I don't hate anybody.
Thank you.
Not locally.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that's fine too.
I just have a question
Yes, sir.
on the free cash breakdown,
Mhm.
14%.
Yeah.
That's-
That would go to him, yeah.
Do you have a breakdown of where it came from? That is, how much was rolled forward from the previous year's free cash,
Mhm.
from unexpended expenses, and then from unexpected revenue such as new growth, which fluctuates, motor vehicle excise tax, previous tax collections. Some years you write off special articles because, the project has been done and there's.
We just did this year. He wrote off a few of them. yeah.
All of that. Do you have a breakdown of that?
No, but that was a question that I had, because when we looked at the end of the year, looking at it per se, at the end of the year number, it was a significant amount just on the general budget, general fund budget. And then on the documentation that we saw from the accountant, there was another significant number as far as the amount of revenue was higher than what was anticipated. So to me, between those two, you would add those up, and that would become free cash, because if you get more revenues, that's free cash. If I'm correct, is that correct? Yeah, okay. And I didn't know if we, because it's nowhere written or shown what, if any, is left over from free cash anywhere.
It's in the budget book and at the annual town meeting. You just follow how much take the certification that we have.
Oh,
right
yeah,
now,
yes,
and just
you're right,
follow
you're right.
Town meetings deductions from free cash, and at the end of the year,
Yes,
it's in the page, how
Yes.
much is used.
you are
And
correct.
what
This-
is left over rolls into next
Yeah.
year, which is part of the policy that I disagree with, because
I
you're
know.
letting somebody have your money for free instead of putting it stabilization or OPEB or wherever and make money.
Yeah.
I just don't like.
I agree with that.
handing people My money to hold. free
Thank you
of
for pointing
charge.
that out. I forgot that was a page in the.
So
in the
that's where you
budget
can
book.
find out the amount of free cash rolled forward. I think this year was about 133,000 something.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering if you did a breakdown, if you're concerned about the percentage being so high, if you did a breakdown, how much free cash is rolled forward, how much from leftover
Yeah.
expenses, and how
So-
much unexpected revenue, such as new growth, which fluctuates, along with motor vehicle excise tax collections for 3 years. And then you could have a case making the budget
Yeah.
is a little fat,
Yeah.
Well,
because the unexpected revenue, you don't know when you're getting that.
I,
So having said that,
And
if
that's-
we rolled $133 something thousand in free cash at the end of FY 2021,
I believe that's.
and we just certified $1.44 something million,
Yep.
minus $133,000 of rolled, we're still at $1.32 million.
Well, that's why I wanna know if we did a breakdown.
So,
of unex-
well, and what I'm going through here though is that, so it means that the percentage is probably just a little bit lower than what you've got listed there for 2021, but not a lot.
I'm curious, if
You
you're
know?
making the case, I'd like to know
Yeah.
what's the revenue,
But I
because
would-
that's the important number.
I
Yeah.
would rather see us, like Jeffrey just said. I would rather see us appropriate money to roads or
Mhm.
something we need as, instead of using free cash as a bank
Safety net, basically.
or a bank,
Mhm.
it's kind of, I'd rather have it, what I talk about is an honest budget.
Mhm.
This is what we need, this is what we need to plan for, because we never plan for anything. And when you have this free cash, it's the path of least resistance.
Yep.
We have followed this path around and around for 40 years. And I would rather have us designate money in the budget, toward an account for roads or something else we need desperately. Because when free cash rolls in, as someone put in an email, oh, I can spend that. No, Santa Claus has not come to town. That is tax money.
Sounds like what the name,
Yeah,
you know.
free
it-
Yeah,
cash.
it really, it's
Whee!
bad. Yeah, exactly. Ooh, yeah,
Daffy
yeah,
Duck
yeah,
sitting in
yeah.
his pile of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
Scrooge, not Daffy.
Well, yeah, Scrooge, I know, it's Scrooge. But I know there have been administrators that have sandbagged by padding accounts so that in the end we'd have free cash.
Mhm.
I say, go to the people, say, this is what I really need and this is why I need it, and trust them to trust you.
Mhm.
And I think if they trust you, you will get a lot further along.
Yep.
It's just, you know, you live in the community now, this is your community. There's a lot of difference between somebody that lives here and has an investment in their community than somebody that. We got money to spend.
Well, not only that, and I think Jeff touched upon it too. I mean, I look at our new growth. I mean, we put in the budget $70,000 conservatively, and our new growth is through the roof.
And we're on the way there again this year, it would seem too.
Oh, it's just insane.
Yeah.
Well, the answer is it's not gonna last.
And I have a.
It won't,
So
but-
but once it's here, you can't squander it.
So if you see all those numbers going through the roof too, I believe all that could be attributed to our number being certified. I mean, we're talking a significant amount of money and what we rolled over from fiscal year, the last budget.
But see, we rolled it over, but we probably could have put it to a better use than rolling it over. We could have established some funds. I mean, we have roads we can't drive. I'm taking you for a ride. You have never, ever.
You mean
ever-
later, right? Yeah, okay.
I am. You have never gone down some of these roads and people pay $300,000, $400,000 to live on them.
I've been on Royalston
No,
Road and I've been on a Royalston Road with it.
Royalston Road is nothing.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, just that one example, I've been on that in an F-150 and I was afraid I was gonna lose my transmission on the bottom of that thing.
Go
Thank
down,
you.
go down French Road, try that one.
Try that one.
Size.
Heck, my own road before it got repaved was a problem.
Oh, you're lucky, you're too.
I know, I know that. Anyways, all right.
If I
Continue.
can, yes, if I can continue. This would be on page 8. And I want to bounce this off the administrator because I know how he did some calculations.
When he says page 8 for us, it's probably the second page of the policy.
waiting to
Yes,
see
yeah.
Well,
He said that.
Second page of the policy.
Second page of the policy is.
He's looking under the paragraph that starts with upon certification of the town's free cash.
Yep. Right,
Am I correct?
yes, that's correct.
Every now and then I know what I'm doing.
Sometimes I do.
Well.
I know that you had to take and end up doing some calculations for the upcoming fall town meeting. And I see you have $250,000 for the stabilization,
Mhm.
and it's broken down, et cetera. I ended up going through and said, okay. You know, and I think this is the steps that you took to do it also. Because there's a snow and ice and also the annual a capital budget. 50% of the 14, which is a little over 750,000. That would be your free cash, which would go for your snow and ice and also your capital. That's how you figured it?
That's the working capital by the policy, right? Mr. Sprang?
Is that?
Well, I mean, it depends on how right now, what I'm looking at is you have 50% and then what is it, 30%? For
35.
your stabilization, and then you got the rest between your capital stabilization and your OPEB, right?
Yeah.
By the policy. So what I did, for example, where you see the draft fall town meeting warrant, is it says 30%, so I put roughly 15% towards our stabilization at the fall town meeting.
Mhm.
So that way, let's say, I could gauge snow and ice number and hopefully we don't deficit spend. But let's say come the annual town meeting, so I'd make 2 deposits of roughly 15% at the fall town meeting and then 15% at the annual town meeting. So I believe in the draft warrant, it was what, 250,000.
That's what I have, 250,000, yeah.
Stabilization.
250 to OPEX, 70 to CapEx, and 35 to OPEB.
Right.
So I'm looking at 250K come the fall town meeting and hopefully 250K come the annual town meeting.
Okay. for a $500,000.
And then that would give us to roughly, what, almost nearly 1.5 million in our stabilization.
The reason I asked that is because when I calculated using the fact that 50% reserve, reserve for working capital, I took that as snow and ice and also capital and said, okay, out of the 750,000 zone.
Oh, I see what you're doing. I'm kind of looking at it from the same perspective, but I also want to keep in mind, because if I get a blizzard of 78.
Yeah.
I want to really kind of keep that. My intention is to do the 30%.
You always have an emergency reserve.
I do.
If there's enough money in it.
You always have that.
I would also recommend that they try to make the snow and ice budget a little bit more reasonable, but because I think
Yes.
that was
I put more.
You put
$1.
My neighbor said I was creative.
But that's not the word I'd use for it, but okay. You can tell yourself that.
So my
You gotta remember, it was at one
Yeah,
time, it was
you praying
125.
it doesn't snow, and I
Yeah.
get that one praying it
It was-
does.
It was funny because at the last annual town meeting, I believe this was one of the things that I also brought up as a person, as a
Citizen.
concerned citizen at that point, before I joined on with the committee, in that the fund was the snow and ice fund was really about $100,000 short for an average winter.
Yeah.
Because that's what we kind of had last year, was an average winter, and we ended up having to move $100,000 over. So,
Makes no, really,
Yeah.
we had a very easy winter.
well, I'm just saying, when I say average winter, I say by actual inches of snow. Believe it or not, last winter was basically average, maybe a hair short. So, I mean,
Using my analogy.
but anyway, that's
I
my
came-
point.
I came up with the 35% of the 750,000, 253,399. So I went, okay. He anticipates some stuff there, and I thought that was good, and I wanted to at least point that out.
My intention is to make it like the working capital, like you
The next,
suggested.
the next thing I went on is to the page 9, which would be
He's under B2A general stabilization policy at this point, just so you guys know.
Rolling right along.
Yeah, we're moving.
and then I looked at this and I said 8% of the omnibus operating budget, less school debt. Again, I have a problem with less school debt. It's part of the damn budget. It's, as far as I can see, that why, if we're gonna take out the school debt, then somebody's gonna step up and say, let's take the debt for the police station out. Why not do that? But it's the school, the police station is debt, is part of the budget, so isn't the school.
Would you like to make another motion?
Yeah, if you want.
Would the motion sound something along the lines of, I move to recommend to the select board under their financial policy, B2A general stabilization policy, section 1, remove the 2 instances, or so I should strike the 2 instances of the words less school debt.
Yes,
Say the 2 words, please.
less than school.
No, say the 2 words, so moved, please.
So moved.
There you go. Those are the words.
I'll catch on.
Those are the words I needed.
If I can't speak to that.
Yes.
I believe.
Before you speak to it, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Spring and a second by Mr. Bartolomeo. Be my guest, Mr. Lamontagne.
The only thing I could come up with why that policy probably says less school debt is around the time, I think that was after the school vote was passed. And they're trying to get the policies in place.
Yeah.
And they really didn't know what the anticipation of the debt was
Mhm.
when the policy was written. So I think that's why it was written as less school debt, because that's before I came here. So that's.
I know that, that's why I brought it up, and I didn't,
That's why I'm thinking that's probably why the language was in there, because they're putting the policy and they probably didn't know what that debt was gonna come in at. And they didn't want to be in
So
violation
now
of
we
the
got the
policy.
broom out and we're cleaning all that up.
And may I also note that this motion and the previous motion are still just recommendations. The select board can choose to act upon them, or they can choose not to act upon them.
exactly right.
So they may say, nah, we're not gonna change it. And you know what? That's entirely within their right to do so.
Yep.
We are making the
It's
recommendation.
their policy.
That's right.
We're just making
We're
recommendations.
making their recommendation.
Don't stuck at the
Exactly.
wall, see what sticks.
Is there any other discussion on that particular item?
No.
Hearing none on the motion, how do you vote, Mr. Spring?
Yes,
Ms. Hanza?
Yes.
Ms. Bartolomeo?
Yep.
And I am a yes. That motion passes 4-0 at 8:13 PM.
if I can go on to a little more on that same thing. The general stabilization policy. And I'm just gonna take and say this. We're not following it. And I'll let people figure out why, because I've gone and done my homework. And if you ask me why, I'll tell you. But I'm not going to, I don't think I should be doing the work of the selectmen on this particular one. When they wrote this up, I think they were absolutely wrong. I have a number of other communities which I went, and it's always of the entire budget, not of the omnibus budget. Okay, I'm just gonna take and say that because there is a significant difference. And just so you know, the advisory committee has got a stabilization policy, which we'll be reviewing. And I wanted to bring it up so everybody understands some of the stuff. It's imperative that we end up, when we write that policy, because it was pointed out, I brought up a number. It was a good number. But one of our citizens out there said, but it's this number here on the BVA, and that was a good number too. So in our policy, we have to make sure that we end up specifying what period of time that we're actually looking at to figure out the number that we got on our stabilization fund document. I just want to point that out.
Okay.
So I make that point.
For the committees, just a reminder to the committee that we have that document we presented it last meeting for review, and it is to be brought back up on the meeting on Thursday, November 4 for approval and posting to the town website. At that point, we'll discuss what changes may need to be made to it.
Okay, so under that, I will end up saying those are the things that I bring up. If somebody asks me, I'm not going to answer that. I'll let them take a look at the thing, and we'll end up reporting on our stabilization policy. I think we'll do it the correct way versus what the policy says. The last thing I have is, and I handed that out, is stabilization fund history. I never like to take and end up line signing my administrator. I end up speaking to him and sending him emails on percentage of interest and a few other questions. He said he has gone out and found me some answers. Let me point out the first one, and I'll let you bring your papers out, Adam. If you look at the sheet that I had, and let's see, it would be March. I should have had my little sheet paper. Oh, okay, here it is. On the second page, the full page, FY20, March 31, 20. It showed $711,088.69. As I ended up telling the administrator, I looked at whether we had you have to know that we can only take out monies out of the stabilization fund by going to either the fall town meeting and annual town meeting, and it has to be 2/3 vote to take the meeting out. So I didn't assume anything. I ended up looking at the meeting in January. We had a special town meeting. That was for a particular, I think that was for the dump. I'm changing some wording on that. I went back to the fall town meeting and I looked there and I says, I don't see anything there because it could be a delay in taking the money out. And I presume that I didn't want to take it, end up presuming that was it. So I turned around and asked Adam, I says, why do we have a 9,144 reduction in the amount of stabilization from March that goes into April and May?
Mr. Lamontagne.
Mr. Lamontagne, yeah, it's your stage.
So if I can just pass these.
You do?
So I have a breakdown of the stabilization, the capital stabilization.
top one's the stabilization account.
Thank you,
The
sir.
bottom one's the capital stabilization.
Thank you.
Because I believe there was some questions on the interest and the stabilization account for both those. But it was just for the stabilization, so I figured I'll give you the capital stabilization as well. So what happened back in March of 2020, I think we all remember where we were, what we were doing when we first heard of the COVID and when it hit. And many folks didn't know what was going on, and of course, the market, well, went down.
Yeah.
Took a plunge. So that's where you see the dip in the stabilization balance. And then, of course, when the market recovered, so then,
And has been doing so ever since.
Now,
and that's where you see the dip into the stabilization.
Okay.
And if I can say, I had a meeting today with our Bartholomew and company, for our annual review of 2021. And the way we invest not only our stabilization, but our trust funds are all within the compliance of law.
Mhm.
And they make sure that's done properly.
So what you're saying is that, reduction of the stabilization fund was due to the market dip when COVID hit. And then once that dip came back up, obviously that money kind of recovered because of market conditions again.
Correct.
Okay, so it wasn't an actual deduction from the account physically, it was due to market conditions that those,
Those drove that
okay,
number down.
is that kind of where you were?
let me just go on. I pulled out an IGR, a stabilization fund
From the BLS.
from BLS.
Yep.
This is a document. And I perused through that. I won't say that I'm always correct in my interpretation, but I saw that it could go into a trust company. Here's my concern. I'm looking at the town's money here, and if we have an investment that we lose money on, there's a hiccup. If this country has a big problem, per se, and that amount of money in the stabilization goes down significantly, and all of a sudden the town is in dire straits and we need stabilization,
And there's nothing there.
we could end up, well, maybe nothing, but it could be significantly down. And I'm very conservative with money, and especially the town's money. I'd like to think and see it put into something more stable. And I know that the treasurer can go out and do that. And I know we also have a consultant that she deals with, or somebody that looks over these funds and makes recommendations. That's my concern. I mean, I can only relay that concern because this affects the town's money.
I'm gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate
Yes,
here.
go ahead.
And the reason I'm gonna play it is because when I look at the loss versus the total, I was looking at about a 1.2% loss versus the total, okay? When we're talking about market volatility, a 1.2% loss, considering the dip that happened at the start of COVID, is quite excellent, actually. The fact that we only lost 1.2%. Well, the problem is though, and I'm getting to that.
Yep.
If we're going to invest in the markets with this money, there's going to be the potential for loss on occasion, especially in a situation like this. However, there is also the potential for great gains, which is what we are seeing on the other end as well. So what my point is that if we're going to be in the markets, we have to be able to swallow a little bit of potential loss on a temporary basis in order to be able to realize the potential gains as a result of it. So again, in my devil's advocate situation, I look at a 1.2% loss as a result of what happened at the beginning of COVID to be quite acceptable, especially seeing the return that we've seen as a result on the other end.
All right, my
Because
idea,
I'm
wait a
looking
minute,
at it
Willie.
as an interest. Go ahead.
Let's, Bev, would you please,
This
go ahead.
is stabilization. This is our savings account.
Mhm.
If I put that money under my bed or in my safe deposit box and I go back 5 years
It's still
later,
there.
it's still there.
Yep.
We can't play Russian roulette with our stabilization. We are not a wealthy community. We can't afford a loss if it doesn't come back. There's nothing etched in concrete.
Mhm.
And if we're down and out, we couldn't even borrow money at one point. We had no bond rating.
Right.
We were so broke.
Yep.
And we had crap for stabilization. One time I got in trouble because I said, no, don't take that money out of stabilization. That was about all we had to pay a bill.
Right, they want to take out, they want to take $80,000 out of $100,000 that we had in stabilization.
Yeah.
And this advisory committee recommended no.
And it's just, I can see play in the market with some other funds, but not stabilization. I think that one needs to be, if you want to put it in an account where you get some interest, well, whoopee-doo, fine, but not if they can take away the principal.
Here's,
No way, no way.
here's my
I
thoughts,
almost dropped that. I couldn't believe it.
here's my thoughts on this, because it shows it as interest. Interest tells me it's in a fairly stable, supposedly, account. My question to follow up is, what type of account do we have? Do we have municipal bonds, which would pay off interest on certain?
In general, yes.
Yeah. And municipal bonds don't necessarily, you don't lose it per se.
It's a combination of accounts
Yeah.
that are very stable.
So I'd like,
Within that we have the authority to do with the treasurer collector. And I can say, like, I think the chair explained it well, considering what happened with the dip in the market, the
You don't-
impact to
you
us
don't
was very
understand. We
minimal.
shouldn't be doing that
Yeah.
at all, not with stabilization. With other things, yeah, but not with our stabilization money.
But I think we could see
That's
the
nuts.
growth that has come from that. So overall, that account
It
has,
doesn't matter. If we're down the bottom and we need money, it ain't there. We can't wait for the growth.
well, I think that looking at things like I do as a positive end is after fall town meeting, we're
We
gonna be
had
at
a-
nearly $1.2 million. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's good that we're
yes.
discussing
Mhm.
all the money we have in our accounts compared to the times when we
But
barely
we
had
had
anything.
money at times. It can disappear in a heartbeat.
But we're
All the
watching it.
bad
and-
decisions we make cost us up the kazoo, 40 years worth of debt. Because people don't use their head. And I just cannot see justifying putting stabilization, that's the only one I care about.
Mhm.
Into a fund like that. That's mine.
I went in and did some,
Before you
Go ahead.
do that,
Yeah.
I want to I want to ask Ms. Hanza if she has any comments on this, because I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak.
Well,
this.
I would,
Go ahead.
I would ask you, is it considered a balanced fund then? Is that?
The fund that the
fund
that
that
stabilization is invested in it, yeah.
stabilization Is in, so that it's, and your point that it didn't go down
Right.
that much,
Mm-hmm.
and that it seems to be doing well otherwise, and
As long as the market does well.
right. And the problem with going with more of a mattress solution is that you end up behind the inflation wall.
Well, yeah, exactly, because and that's the thing with bonds too, is yeah, they do consistently pay out, but the payout is usually not very much. It's on the order of 1 or 2%.
So, it's a risk.
Yeah.
But I think your point is it's a risk that we don't maybe want to take.
Right. That's,
So
I think,
it's a-
I think
it's
that's
a
exactly.
question
yeah.
for
We had a lot
I
of
think
money coming in
the
from
town. How much
industry.
risk do they want to take? And what is the risk in this fund?
I don't think we can afford
if I
to do
can-
that.
Let me, Mr. Lamontagne?
54.79% is in corporate bonds, 25.19% is in treasury bonds, 14.68% is in government agency, and 5.34% is in CDs.
So that tells me it's in, that tells me that it's mostly in
Mostly,
bonds and
right.
securities, in all honesty, yes.
Yeah.
Mr.
that's
Bennett.
what I asked for.
Yeah.
I'd
Mr.
just
Bennett.
I'd just like to clarify something, that a statement that Mr. Spring just made.
Yes,
where
sir.
he referenced something about interest. If you go, and this is all available on the town's website.
Yep.
It's the quarterly financial reports.
Yep.
And they show all the totals of where the funds are in particular, and they show, and they started showing these at the request of the advisory committee a few years back.
Yeah.
It says general stabilization investment income. That should give
Yeah.
people the clue that it's not interest as in a bank.
Right.
It's an investment.
Yep.
Which has volatility.
Mhm.
Some greater than others. And it's every quarter, and you can look at every end of the year, and it has how much was transferred in for that year, for the fiscal year, and the investment income. So
Right.
it's just, I just want to make
Mhm.
people in TV land,
Yep.
the records and the stuff that everybody has access to
Mhm.
is investment
there.
income, not interest in like the
Mhm.
traditional thought of a bank account.
Right.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
don't know, because
I think that,
I think what Adam just gave us is the breakdown, is
Yeah.
what I was asking for.
and it
It's-
sounds like it's mostly bonds and things that generally go up. I
A little
mean,
bit, yeah.
bonds aren't entirely guaranteed
No,
either.
I understand
If the
that.
prime interest rate goes negative, then obviously the bonds are gonna go that way as well. So
Well, I
it's
see the money
it's
was
not
down.
perfect, but for the bonds in general
Yeah.
are probably some of the safest investments you could be
Exactly.
placed in, because they're generally gonna show 1 to 2% increase
Yeah.
on a year-by-year basis without too much
So
problem.
that one was the trust funds, and then I can for the total amount of the 6,155,906.68 is corporate bonds 42.16%, treasury bonds 19.38%, common stock 12.07%, government agency 11.30%, bond fund 7.11%, CDs 4.11%, and then money market mutual fund 3.88%.
So like 15% in stocks, basically, between common
There's only
stock.
certain stocks that are allowed.
Right.
By,
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
consider.
And it's 15% of the total, 85% of the total is in is in bonds and stuff like that, that you
That's
generally
what
see
that's
the
what I
increase.
wanted to understand when I saw it go
Mhm.
down.
So I gave you the.
So it's the
trust fund numbers
so it's the
earlier.
15%
Overall.
that probably went down. Yeah.
Yep.
It's the 15% that went down.
it's just, we have had such slim margins,
Yeah.
it just makes me nervous.
Yep.
And-
Until we have a real source of income besides people's taxes.
What I think that I can say, and I think Ms. Hansa might back me up on this one, is that the breakdown is generally in safe, in
Yes,
conservative, yeah,
conservative.
that's a very conservative portfolio. And the reason I can say that too is I take a look at my 401k, okay? And mind you, I have 25 to 30 years left until I retire, so I am in an aggressive portfolio that is
You should be.
80% some odd stocks.
Yep.
So I'm basically saying I can afford to take some risk in order to see the higher gain.
Yep.
The town,
We
the
don't
way that
know.
they, what's that?
No, we don't know, it's like we need it now.
Right.
The
The town, in general, they are invested very conservatively.
Yes, they are.
85% bonds in general, that's a very conservative portfolio. That's very low risk. Generally, bonds are gonna go up. It's not gonna be much, it's gonna be a couple percent, but they're gonna go up.
Stabilization was so slim to
Mm-hmm.
next to none. It's, until we're really solvent, we've got money coming in because of new growth and all that. But we've been high before and dropped like a rock.
And
And I don't want to do that again. We
And-
need to change the way we do business.
And I was just about to get there, Bev, in that I also agree with the fact that we're leaning too heavily on residential and the property taxes.
Yep.
The town, and specifically in this case, we need the select board to promote commercial and industrial growth in the
Yes.
town. Right now, the town's financial base is too heavily based on property taxes. And
100%.
And the biggest thing is, right now, yes, we're seeing a boom in property prices. But what's gonna happen when it comes down on the other end? And eventually it will.
And only a
know?
couple of years ago, we had 65 empty houses in
Yeah.
town.
Exactly. And I don't think, the only empty houses we probably have in town right now are the ones that aren't livable.
There are- No,
Yeah.
there are some for sale signs going up here and there.
The market is starting to change a little bit. You're seeing more inventory now. But the thing is with that is you haven't seen a price change yet. The prices are still they've been pretty stable at a level now for at least about the last 6 months. Up until that point, they were doing one of these, because I remember I bought my house 2 years ago in town. I paid about $300,000. It's worth significantly more than that right now.
If you can
It's-
get it.
Yeah, and that's the trick, exactly. So, I mean, we're here right now. We're at the top of the mountain as far as the home prices go. And it'll probably sit there for a little while, but eventually you're right. It's gonna drop off. It's gonna start coming down the other way. And then the town's gonna be in trouble because again, we're heavily leveraged towards
We have-
our
We have a
property
lot of
taxes.
debt too. We
Yeah.
have to
So.
work on that somehow.
And I think that's one of the things that the select board really has to help us in the town on is they need to, I mean, I'm not gonna say aggressively promote commercial and industrial, but they need to promote commercial and industrial growth in the town to diversify the tax base. Okay, so,
Can I go on here?
I'm just gonna say that we're at 2 hours here, Will, so
I'm going to pick it.
okay,
I would be remiss after I got this, is to not ask the question why we went down. Because that was an indication to me that we went down. Now that it's explained as to what we're invested in, to me, that's a more conservative, and I agree with that approach.
you think that's a reasonable explanation at this point? Good.
That's a reasonable explanation as to why it went down, and that's what I was looking for.
Okay.
As to, if it's a minor going down, and it's based upon conservative,
But
that's
10
one thing.
points for at least knowing, realizing it and asking the question.
Right,
That's
we're
what
even,
I'm
we're
thinking.
supposed to be watching the money,
4 points in
and
10.
I would be remiss for not asking that. Let me just point out a couple of things. Come November
I saw
3rd,
it.
when we put in $250,000 more, based upon the August 31st number and adding 250,000, we will be somewhere in the range of $1,218,901.86. And if I look at how much we put in on the other column, our expected balance is $1,166,432. I've got interest or going up of $51,969, and based upon the sheets here, it's a little bit different. I would have to take it. I haven't made an assessment. I did a quick assessment. It looks like 30, 54, 55, 56. 60, 69, about 59, which we're, okay, we're about $9,000 difference on.
In the range at least.
It's in the range, so I feel, we asked the questions, we pushed on it.
We got the answers.
Yeah, we got some good answers.
And the other note there too is, as you said, Mr. Lamontagne, is that's the $250,000 being put in for the fall town meeting. There's another $250 that's planned for annual town meeting come May.
Then maybe we
Unless I
can
get
Like
take
that plan.
Unless I get a blizzard of 78. or
Well, yeah,
something,
no
you know.
kidding, but yeah, we
take
understand that.
Money and do something constructive with it.
Mhm.
Mr. Bennett?
Oh, she's asking you, I think.
Yeah.
I think she's pointing at you this time.
She's asking what
Would
you're
you like to
gonna do with
clarify
the
your-
money.
What's that?
She's asking what you want to do with the money.
Oh,
He's got some ideas.
what would I like to do with money?
We know.
Is
I
there,
would- I would just point out, Mr. Chairman, that
yes, sir.
this little downfall, it was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the fiscal watchdogs were on vacation or what, but
I can't speak to it. I wasn't here at that point.
I didn't say these members specifically, I said the fiscal watchdog. I would just point out for people watching on TV that in 2020, the investment income was about 15 grand and some change, and this fiscal year that just ended, June 30th, 2021, that year, we had 24,000 and some change in investment income, so
Did you see the market today?
that's what,
And yes,
I don't watch
Yes,
it.
did
It's-
he?
That'll drive you nuts. You gotta think long-term.
Mhm.
You leave it there,
Yeah.
you lose a little bit on paper only, but
That's what you hope for.
Yep.
As long as you don't need it.
I do have a last question. Is all of the money invested in this one portfolio?
This
Stabilization.
Berthold Company, yes.
Yeah.
All the trust funds and the capital stabilization.
This is the
and
company
the
that, this is
general
the,
Stabilization, the OPEBs,
this is the company that the town contracts with to do this work, basically.
the treasurer
The
collector.
treasurer collector, yeah. Okay.
Would it be possible to reserve some of it and put it in mattress account?
You have to talk to the treasurer collector.
Just,
Yep.
Yeah. There he is.
I'd like to make one comment.
Yes, sir.
The seat fee will be.
This goes to what you were saying, you were very concerned about $10,000-15,000 difference in the stabilization account. Each and every year, $200,000 leaves the town of Templeton just to pay interest on the bonded indebtedness of the MBTA.
I know.
That we
Nobody-
have nothing to do with.
And nobody ever says anything about that, and it leaves the town,
No, I know.
$12 million leaves the town every year for things like scratch tickets, your taxes. And the amount that goes, out of that $12 million a year that goes, $5 million of it goes to pay bonded indebtedness.
That we probably have nothing to do with.
And yet it's never discussed.
No, I know.
And it's poison on the budget of this town. Because if you had that $5 million, think of what you could do with it.
Mhm.
And you lose $5 million year in and year out.
Yeah.
And that's what I was addressing in my second proposal. I took direct aim at that.
No.
And you really need to think about that. I hope that you vote favorably on that.
All right,
All right.
very good
So,
discussion on the general stabilization fund. Is there anything else that we want to bring up? Or we're
Roll up the rug.
home on that one? Yep. Let's go to member comments. Ms. Bartolomeo.
It's an education. No, every week I learn something new. I get frustrated, but I ask questions. I have a money man that I talk to all the time. He keeps an eye on town government and how we spend our money. And just, I feel more comfortable that town's getting in a better place. We have some work to do, but it was a good meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev.
Yep.
Ms. Hansa.
I agree.
Very good. And before I move on, I want to thank you for taking the position of the clerk of the committee. That was
I've done it.
very kind. Very kind of you to volunteer. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I told you, anytime you need help, I'll help you out.
And I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Hansa. Mr. Spring, comments from you, sir.
Yes, let me just, saying that we brought up some things that we missed if we hadn't.
Yep.
We got some good answers from the administrator, and I thank him for taking the time to let the department heads also know that we appreciate the effort that they put in. I know it's sometimes not, it's additional work, but it's something that helps this committee understand what's going on so that we can end up doing our job better. And it also makes them think about what they're doing in their job. The other thing I want to bring up
Get right,
as,
Will.
as on Thursday, October 21st, from 7 to 8:15. So this is October 21st, October 28th, and November 4th. The Association of Town Finances will hold their annual meeting this fall as a 3-part Zoom webinar.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be unfortunate for us.
I know that, on the 28th, yes.
On the 21st as well,
Well, that's right, yes.
and on November 4th.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
We're 3 for 3. Unfortunately, we are 3 for 3 there, and there's not much we can do about it.
No, no.
Those are really great meetings too.
Yeah, we can't be in 2 places. So,
Let me say this, if you sign up for it
Mhm.
and register, you may not watch the webinizer, but you will have access to the webinizer after.
so they're going to record it?
Yes, they did the last time.
And I believe we have paid, the town has paid for this for the members before, hasn't it?
Yes, they
Yes,
are.
sir.
Okay, so, yes,
If I may, just lately, a lot of these webinar meetings that they've been doing online.
Yep.
They show up, it might be a few weeks, but they show up on the MMA website.
Yes,
okay.
You click on ATFC, finance committees, and they usually have a link so you can watch it. You don't get to ask questions and just.
Yeah.
but
well, you can at least watch the webinar, exactly.
That's one of the things that has worked out.
They're hitting some actually good points, and I want to take and point out a couple of things. They actually talk about changes to the open meeting law, public records guidelines, areas specific to the finance committee, which we are, and the finance committee, when they may enter into executive session, will be covered also. They also talk about, let's see, there was another one. They also talk about ARPA and the state budget, which we all know that we got the ARPA documentation. So this is to me, it's very timely. Last year, to me, was also, and I attended that one, and I was very, very impressed with the webinizer, because they had all the members from the DLS,
Mhm.
the directors, and each one of them talked about their particular session, and Miss Handy, who is no longer there, and I look up to that individual for this. So she had come to this community, and she had talked about her thing and what's available for finance committees to take and end up getting information from this, from DLS.
Mhm.
So it was very informative, and I look forward to this year as being another year, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring up.
I believe we can we go to the MMA website and register for that? I
Yes,
mean,
it is, and if you look at it,
and they will bill us, if I remember correctly, and when that
no,
bill,
they will not bill us.
or do we have to ask, or do we have to, because we have to ask for reimbursement on that?
No, this is a webinizer, so I don't believe that there's a charge. I may be wrong.
Okay. So in that case, if you want, go to the MMA website, which is, does it have it listed there? Is it listed there?
But you probably send the link.
Yeah.
Yes, it's on-
Oh, there is.
it's on-
www.mma.org is the website.
Yeah.
And search on the AFTC Annual Meeting Webinar Series.
Yep.
And if you, and like Mr. Spring said, if you register for it, you'll get the recording after the fact. Unfortunately, we won't be able to attend live because we have a pre-town meeting, a business meeting, and another business meeting, 1, 2, 3. But at least you'll be able to watch it after the fact, and it sounds like there's gonna be some very good information on that particular webinar series.
And one other thing is the association is updating its financial committee handbook, and the new edition will be published in digital form by the first session.
So October 21st.
All communities that have paid 2020 dues will receive access at that time. So
And we have paid our dues because
And
that
we
was
have
one of the
paid our
first
dues.
things we did in the
So-
year.
the one that we have on our website.
Will have to be removed and we'll have to
be
put the new one up.
removed, The updated one.
Okay. That makes sense.
I'm done.
If I could just jump in real
Yeah.
quick. I meant to mention, I saw work Mr. Spring did on that stabilization document, and it came out pretty good. I'm gonna consider putting that as part of the budget book.
Thank you.
Oh,
Excellent.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lamontagne. Thank you very much. Good.
This helps the community understand how the government works, how their finances work, and I think that's a plus. I know we have a lot of people watching on TCTV. So that's a good thing.
My comments for this evening. You all received the latest copy of the fall town warrant, not finalized yet.
Right.
That will be voted on and finalized by the select board at their October 13th meeting, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Doesn't look like there's a lot of changes left to go in that, if I
I
kind of
believe
breeze
so.
through it.
It's a lot of number changes.
Yeah, there's some number changes that need to be made in there, but other than that, I mean, the text warrants are probably what they're gonna see. I'd ask you guys to please begin reviewing that. We're gonna have a couple of committee heads, or a couple of department heads that are gonna have to come to, the pre-town meeting for sure.
So if you could get me a list too, that way I could send it out to them.
Okay.
Just because we talked about it, but I want to make
Yeah.
sure I get the,
So we're gonna need, let's see. We're gonna need, highway department's gonna need to be there for sure.
Dixon coming for something?
You're gonna need to pick it up, have the cert.
Yeah.
The treasurer,
Cert's gonna have to be there.
the treasurer, I think the administrator can talk to, and there was one other thing under that article. That there was, I can't remember off. Keep going.
Oh, yeah, treasurer, collector, emergency management, and then there's Boldenville caretaking.
Yeah.
I'll take that one.
You'll take that one?
And I
Okay.
think that the administrator can answer any questions on.
And then we're gonna need highway department because he has something in Article 12.
Yeah.
Oh, and conservation.
Conservation, 'cause, yeah, I was gonna make a mention of that because I see conservation in here for an additional appropriation, but I don't see a number. I'm assuming that's still coming. Or is that for River's Edge?
There's River's Edge.
That's River's Edge. Okay, I apologize. Then
That's well
I
plus
just misread it then. So the conservation is River's Edge. So, okay. So yeah, we're gonna need highway and we're gonna need conservation as well. Those department heads.
Buildings and grounds and highways. If you're gonna be there for one thing, Article 1.
So, obviously, Mr. Lamontagne, please invite the appropriate department heads. We will be looking for answers from them. My usual public service announcement, and I said this on Facebook this morning too, when I sent out the meeting, the meeting agenda to the public, that we have 2 open positions. Any registered voters in the town, if you're interested on serving on the advisory committee, please go to the town website, www.templetonma.gov, get the committee interest form, return that to Holly Young, hyoung@templetonma.gov, and then it will come before this committee for a vote. Again, we need anyone who has interest in this, we would love to have you. Please feel free to put in that committee. As a reminder, the next policy that we're going to review is the general stabilization fund policy. That is going to be on the November 4th. Now, my current thought process is that assuming nothing important or urgent now and Tuesday at 6:30 p.m., that the meeting that is currently scheduled for next week will be canceled. That's probably what's going to happen, but again, assuming nothing assuming nothing urgent comes in, then that was my plan, is to cancel that.
And on the warrant.
Yep.
It's up to the selectmen, their discretion to take it and putting. Or actually taking any articles.
Right, they may pull articles, but I think, Mr. Lamontagne, from you deal with them. Probably pretty solid on the 15 that we're gonna get.
I feel pretty good about it. I mean,
Yeah,
since I've
because
been there, they've never taken.
Let me just say that there was one year. There was a number of articles, warrant articles that were put on. By one of the selectmen.
The only one that was questioned. Then town council rule, we had to have that on.
Thank you all. Great discussion. I would like to applaud the fact that we can have a discussion with multiple viewpoints and not have it devolve into an argument, and that we respect each other's opinions on things. Like when it came down to the stabilization funds, and I took the other point, and I was thrilled it was a great conversation, so thank you all for that.
We do have
there-
class, you know.
I appreciate that. I very much thank.
Yep.
Having said everything I want to say, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Bartolome,
mouthful.
hearing none on the motion to adjourn.